Hey everyone, my name is Luke, and in today's video we're going to be comparing the Onewheel GT to the Onewheel Pint X to find out which board is best for you. So I hope you enjoyed that sick montage, and let's now start by talking about the specifications so you can learn a little bit more about what performance you can expect out of these boards. And I want to start with the Pint X so we can get a baseline to compare to the GT. Now the Pint X is around $1,400 or pounds depending on where you're from, and it can get up to 18 miles, but if we're being realistic, it's more like 12 miles if you want to, get some tricks out, you want to ride the trails hard. You're only probably going to get 18 miles if you're a lighter rider with ideal conditions probably on the streets. But what's great about the Pint X, just quickly in comparison to the Pint, is that the Pint X can go faster than the Pint before the pushback kicks in, because Pints are known to have very aggressive pushback. So a Pint would come in around 14, where a Pint X comes in around 16, 17. So that is an improvement. So let's now talk about the GT, and this thing is a quantum leap in one-wheel performance. The specs are insane. You can get up to 32 miles of gentle street riding, but if we're being honest, the more realistic range is around 20 miles if you're doing some tricks and some trails and a more aggressive riding style, and even if you're a heavier rider. But also the GT, which is the biggest thing for a lot of people, is the price. It's £2,200 or dollars, which is a lot considering that's an £800 increase from the Pint X. But with that, especially if you do enjoy riding fast, the higher top speed of the GT is great. You only start to get very gentle pushback around 20 miles an hour. And for me, I've got up to 28 on a GT, and it still does feel really solid because of the 72 volt battery compared to the 60 volt in other one wheels. So it is definitely an upgrade. But now let's talk about why you would either choose one depending on what kind of riding you want to get out of your one wheel. So now I want to move this video onto my personal experience so I can give you a true, honest rider's opinion on which board is best. Now, the way I like to ride is I'm really a hybrid rider, so I enjoy doing street style tricks, but I also have a great time out on the trails pushing higher speeds. I've been riding for 4 years now, thousands and thousands of miles across a variety of Pint X's, GTs and XRs, and what I want to do is give you guys an insight of what it's like to ride and live with these boards. So the biggest difference for me between the Pint X and the GT is the form factor. The GT for me suits my larger frame better. I'm 6'3" with size 10 feet, and it really does suit me. And so does the XR. So the larger platform is a board that I would always prefer. But saying that, I started riding my boards at 16 and I started on a Pint. So I've always loved that small pocket rocket feel of the Pint, and the Pint X is even on a whole nother level compared to the Pint. So let's first start off by talking about the tricks point of view. For me, I prefer the GT because with larger feet, when you're landing big tricks, you have a larger platform to land on. But saying that, for some people with smaller feet, it may feel like too much underneath them and they might prefer a smaller board. I know quite a few people that do have smaller feet and they actually do prefer riding a pint-sized board because it allows them to have more control, especially over that smaller tire. When it comes to freestyle riding on the trails, the size of the Pint X compared to the GT definitely has its advantages and disadvantages. The GT feels like an absolute weapon on the trails. It's got so much power from that 72 volt battery. It just absolutely rockets through everything. It feels pretty much unstoppable, and it's such a good feeling, gives you a lot of confidence. But where the GT struggles is because it has a 6.5-inch wide tire. If you're going through thin single track, it can sometimes feel a little bit big and a little bit top heavy, where that's when the Pint X or even a Pint comes into its own because it has a 4.5-inch wide tire, so you can really weave around and have a great time. So the boards definitely have their own benefits and disadvantages on trails, so it depends. If you're looking for high speed, just bombing as fast as you can through trails, the GT with the higher speed and the larger platform will probably feel more confidence inspiring. Whereas if you prefer to go down little single tracks, you like to have a little adventure, weave through certain things. And saying that, the Pint X still has a ton of torque. So it depends what you're looking for when it comes to trail riding. If you're seeking adventure, range is a really important decision. Because with the GT having up to 32 miles of potential range compared to 18 miles on a Pint X, the GT will definitely allow more freedom if you just want to explore for hours and hours on end. But saying that, for some people, you may just be looking for a commuting board and you may only need to commute 5-10 miles to the office, so the Pint X could be more than enough. So when you're thinking about which board's best for you, think about your use case and where you want to use the board and what kind of riding you want to get out of it. Because I think that will ensure you're not disappointed with which board you choose, because you knew what the board could do and you knew how you wanted to use it. But saying that, if I'm being honest, I started with the one wheel commuting and then I absolutely fell in love with the tricks, and now you can ride for fun, not only commuting. So maybe that's something to think about. If you start just want to using it as commuting, like a lot of us, you might fall in love with the board sport and then want to push harder on the weekends, and you may be looking for that extra range from the GT. When we're talking about the design of these boards, you can see how they share certain aspects. The Pint X and the GT and also the Pint have a light bar, which is really useful, which tells you how much battery you've got and which side of the sensor zone you've got activated. So they are both very technologically advanced and they are great fun. But what I wanted to talk about was, from a night riding point of view, the differences. The Pint X and the Pint have much smaller and lower output LEDs compared to the GT and an XR. So when we're comparing Pint X to GT, if you're someone that really enjoys riding in the dark, the GT is 100% the better option. The lights on the GT are insanely bright. You even have a dimmer switch. You can choose how bright or how dim you would like them. And especially if you're riding in dark places like a trail in the dark, they provide so much confidence because you can see so much further ahead than you can on a Pint X. I mean, from my point of view, the Pint X is great if you're riding in the city in the dark, but if you're for trail riding, especially if you don't have another head torch with you, the Pint X definitely does have quite dim lighting compared to the GT, but it depends how you'd like to use the board. So to wrap up this video, I wanted to give you my final thoughts and conclusions. And from my side, you can't really go wrong. Both these boards are great fun and they do provide you that feeling of snowboarding on land, endless adventure, and you hack the commute lifestyle. Because if you're a person that needs to cycle to work every day, instead you could now be on the one wheel in a flow state having a great time. So, these one wheels are insanely good fun. But now I hope that you now know more about the differences between these boards compared to the larger, more powerful GT or the smaller and nimble Pint X. And if you did enjoy this video, please do like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.